Hey, greetings and welcome to Mount Rushmore podcast. My name is Jeff, and it's been a long time since I talked to these good friends, but I'm here with my good buddy Richard.
Yeah, hello.
And Michael.
Howdy.
Richard and Michael debate and deliberate the most ubiquitous aspects of a variety of subjects. And this time around, it's a subject that I just kind of picked out of the ether.
Yeah, where did this come from?
I was watching Midnight Run, and anytime Midnight Run is one of my stop what you're doing and watch it kind of movies. So this time the topic is the Mount Rushmore of Charles Grodin. Oh no!
Can we do a Grodin episode at some point? Because I would love to just talk about Clifford for 45 minutes.
Yes. Didn't he also didn't he have a nighttime talk show for a little while also? Beethoven 1 through 4. Mount Rushmore of Robert De Niro, and I think Robert De Niro has become a cornerstone, a foundational aspect of American culture and cinema culture. I think he's one of those artists who is enjoyed perhaps around the world and respected around the world. Yet he's also one of those artists that has done as much interesting work as he's done good work. So I
love the use of interesting there.
nice phrasing, Jeff.
Yeah.
Very delicate.
You never know who might be listening. Yeah. Yeah. So I would love to just jump right in, and
I would love to go first. I would love to go first
absolutely,
on this one, if you don't mind. I don't mean to. I know Richard is.
I object, Your Honor.
Richard is the only one that is canonically quasi-Italian.
Yeah.
Still debatable. Name.
Right.
I think this name might be made up at some point.
Well, what's funny is we did Mount Rushmore of Italian nicknames, and we did not consult Richard to see if the Fresno branch of the Italian American. I'm just glad you're still alive, Richard.
We control all the raisins, okay?
Michael, what's
funny? It's funny on that last the last episode that we did about mobster nicknames. None of us were like Sinjay, the knife wielder, Tatsuko. All of it was Italian. None of us went into like the Yakuza.
Oh, the Yakuza.
I think that just speaks to the quasi-racism involved. Okay. So Robert De Niro is such an interesting choice of topic because I can't think of another American actor who has made so many movies that I've seen such a low percentage of, that is regarded as like one of these like you said, cornerstone actors. Like I was looking through like his filmography. He's made like over 100 movies, and of course that includes like early stuff, before he kind of hits it big with Mean Streets, right? Is it Mean Streets? Is that his first one with Scorsese?
Yeah,
whatever
the first Scorsese movie, yeah.
And he's just got this list of films, and this guy just works and works and puts out movies, and has had such an interesting swath of films. I'll use that word interesting again, but I feel like I don't know what any of this is. I've seen the ones that are important, I feel, but
so Meet the Focker.
I've never seen any of the Meet the franchise films, although I did see like the that like animated version of it that so many people have like clinged on to, that they're no, I'm kidding. The Meet the Fockers would have been, if it came out in 1982, there would have been a Saturday morning cartoon that was like the Fockers on ABC with
Baby
like
Fockers.
Next to like Qbert and Dungeons and Dragons or whatever it was. So I can't, but like looking through like his list of films, and I don't know if my list is all, since it's Robert De Niro, it's not just films, it's kind of De Niro-ish sort of things. I had to like break it down into like, okay, a comedy, a drama, a weird one, and then my wild card pick. But I'll go with my first pick, which is a comedy, and just because you mentioned it off the top, Midnight Run,
Oh
where
yeah.
Sure.
he is such an interesting comedic presence just
Mm-hmm.
in his films that even though he's, except the films where he goes really broad and really big, all of his comedy stuff is really like wry. Like he kind of has like all of his smiles through kind of like the side of his face, and he's always still dangerous, even as like a
Mm-hmm.
comedian. Like he's never super lovable, or in the things where he is lovable, he's still dangerous. Or when he's super dangerous in something, he's usually pretty lovable in a weird way. He's got like just this way about him on screen and just in his roles that, like, even when he's like an awful gangster, you kind of root for him in a weird way.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
But in this, in Midnight Run, he's playing against Charles Grodin, who is so good and like kind of panicky and manic and always trying to get out of it. And he's very, he's the straight. It's funny because it's a movie where they're both straight men in a way.
Mm-hmm.
No one is over the top, but it's just so, he's just so good at in this bounty hunter role. And it's one of my favorite of like the 12 to 17 films that I've seen of his. It's one of like, I think my favorite ones as a comedy,
I agree.
What part did you pick up Midnight Run in when you were watching it the other day? Was it just in the middle of it and you just watched it like some like crazy boomer that you just happened to be flipping through channels? Like,
It was right at the beginning. It was right at the beginning, and he was getting his collar stolen by who we'll discover is the doofusy bad guy. And then he ends up getting it back. But it was kind of right at the beginning, and I agree with you in that I think De Niro uh, knows enough about the bigger. I think he's become enough. He knows enough about the story to know that he needs to be the wall that people bounce off of, or that comics play off of, and yet he can still play things for timing. Like a good dramatic actor still has comic timing, and he knows he's in a comedy, yet he knows if he smiles, it's over. Um, in and Even though that character is a little bit more playful than some of the other characters that he's played, um, he's I think De Niro knows. Like Tommy Lee Jones has to be the straight guy in Men in Black, or
Right.
Will Smith isn't going to be as funny. You have to think this guy um, can do the stuff. And yeah, I do find it interesting in looking at his career is that one thing I feel about him is he spent about 25. If his career has been about 50 years old, he spent a good 6 years kind of creating the career that we remember him for now, between Mean Streets and The Godfather,
Yeah.
and um, Once Upon a Time in New York, or
America. Yeah.
he's spent that time creating this career, but since then he's almost done work that almost is challenging it, interesting work that is in which he's almost straight faced winking at his earlier career. And I feel like this was one of those movies that was in danger sometimes of doing that because it was a buddy comedy, you know. But yeah, it's one of my favorite films, and it gave birth to one of my favorite books, which is Charles Grodin's autobiography. And most of the first volume of his autobiography is about Midnight Run
How
and
funny.
dealing with Robert De Niro. And it's so fun to see or to hear him describe what it's like to work with Robert De Niro, the intensity that he takes with everything, how he's always going to be Robert De Niro, even in long like well, anyway, yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I love that. I love that film. I love that film. So it just shows, I think, how well he is at playing his instrument within a comedic composition. So
Mm.
even though he's got to play his violin the certain way, he knows the big picture of it. So Richard,
Yeah, no, my first choice is very similar. It was just simply written down as Robert De Niro, comma, comedian.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Very
Okay.
Because I'm not sure that he's actually a good comedic actor in as much as he plays everything as Robert De Niro would play
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And they just construct the movie around that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like here's the anchor of the movie is Robert De Niro, and he's going to give you a Robert De Niro performance. And then we're going to build everything else about the movie around that performance to try and prop it up or use that as the pillar that kind of
Mm-hmm.
that everything else kind of plays off of. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
when I see Robert De Niro do a comedy, I don't. It's not like he's doing pratfalls.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, I don't. Jeff, you would know. You're the actor of the group. Is he a good comedic actor?
Well, what
Like
I
an
think
actual comedic actor?
well, when you listen to his timing, so if he's working with Eddie Murphy, in Analyze This, his timing is impeccable. Like his
Hmm.
What movie
timing
is
is
that with Eddie Murphy?
that's
See, that's the thing.
Showtime. Yeah, so he's working with comics, and he has to know, even though he's playing a serious instrument and Eddie Murphy's playing a comedic one, they have to be on the same tempo together, and that fundamental element of rhythm is, I think, the soul of comedy.
Right.
So I think he is good at and if you ever listen to um Scorsese talk about shooting Casino. So Casino, he's playing opposite Alan King, Don
Sure.
Rickles. Uh, uh, Scorsese says there were two rival gangs in the part of New York that they grew up in. There was the gangs that would beat you up, and there was the gangs that would make fun of you. De Niro was part of the make fun of you gang. De Niro was part of the gang that would say mean stuff about people. So
No,
I think
that's funny.
at his soul, he is he loves comedy. He loves the the um, the aggression of comedy, because comedy is a an antagonistic art form, you know, that requires precision, like martial arts or something like that. So I would say I think he's a great comedian in that he knows the rhythm of comedy, but he knows that he is at best a bassoon. He's not
Okay.
a
Mm.
slide whistle. Woo! He is a component of the orchestra that needs to be have a really a timbre that is very authentic or real. So yeah, but I think of, like, is he the king of comedy? So when he plays a person trying to play a comedian, when he plays an aspiring comedian or somebody who wants to be in the milieu of the Tonight Show, like he does in The King of Comedy, that's fascinating to me too,
Right.
because it shows how tone deaf he's playing a character that is tone deaf to comedy, yet is kind of trying to achieve it or be accomplished in the world of comedy. So that I think is very interesting.
Yeah, the one that I would suggest is probably separate from that in terms of the performance, and I haven't seen it, but I'm just guessing based on the reviews I read and everything else. Was Dirty Grandpa,
Oh yeah, yeah,
which came out in 2016, where he just plays
yeah,
this lecherous old coot.
yeah,
I suspect that one's a lot more broad
yeah,
than the King of Comedy.
yeah. I, for me, it's so funny. Like when I was a kid, or when I was putting the most of my naive energy into being an actor, meaning like college, uh, people lauded De Niro because he was the guy. He was the Sphinx. He was Marlene Dietrich. Like he didn't, or Greta Garbo. He didn't want to talk about his work. He wanted to be left alone. He wanted the work
Right.
to stand for itself. And he still doesn't talk about the work that much, but it's kind of like maybe he has spent the latter part of his career letting us know that although he's given tremendously authentic performances, he's not a gangster. He's not
Yeah.
a criminal. He's not um uh the senior Corleone. I'm forgetting his name. Vito Corleone. He's just an actor, But he was doing those roles with such authenticity and such believability that when he parodies those roles, that when he becomes a parody of a brilliant actor, it feels bizarre.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, Dirty Grandpa.
Yeah, that's certainly the height of his career. I'm sure called up his agent and said, "I got to work with that Zac Efron kid."
Yeah. Well, what I fascinated by, so maybe we should move on, and I have a little bit
Yeah.
of commentary when we get to Michael. What's your second one?
My second pick is are you talking to me? Are you talking to, like
Yeah.
the fact that he has such an iconic line of dialogue that has been so parodied that has generated an entire generation of people who think they can do a Robert De Niro
Yeah.
impression from something that is now what, 40 something years old. When did
Yeah.
Taxi Driver
73, I
come out?
think.
76. 76. So that
Okay.
movie is close to
Almost
50 years
50 years old.
That, and it's such an early performance, but I think it's almost something you said, is he built up whatever his little carved into stone aspect of himself with like a couple of lines from a couple of movies, and even the impressions of him. Like, I think when people do it feels like we're like doing like the trip now, but when people do impressions of Robert De Niro, they do that. Are you talking to me? But they don't do
Yeah.
it as him from Taxi Driver. They do it as him like he was on an episode of Saturday Night Live in like the
Yeah.
mid 90s. Like, it's so built into who he is as an actor or how he delivers lines, but it's put through this weird lens of something of an older version of him. But even that older version of him is 35 years old. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think of Robert De Niro as 80 years old. In my head, he is perpetually 52 or something,
Yeah.
or he's 45. There's some age in there where he's always older. He's always, without children.
Hmm.
And but he's not like the 20 something year old Taxi Driver. Are you talking to me guy? And I think that
Yeah.
one particular line has kind of stayed with him because it has like this toughness and this intensity and this New Yorkness to it
Hmm.
that I don't know, he becomes like this character type that you can do an impression of the same way that people it's like I mean, I'm gonna say John Wayne is kind of a similar sort of thing, but John Wayne only had one mode and it was the same
Yeah.
character through like everything, but it was always
Right.
the same. Hey, you're dead. That's
Hmm.
just the way that John Wayne speaks in it. It doesn't matter what role he was in, I don't think. And I
Yeah.
think that when people think of De Niro, they think of that aspect of him because of that one line. And I think that his God, that's a bread and butter thing. I mean, if
Hmm.
he could retire from acting now and just do like voice recordings for like Cirrus, like or something, or like Garmin driving along the road,
Hmm.
and like it could just be like some versions of like the three things that he's very very famous for.
Yeah.
And like
I feel
everybody
like
would be like,
that's
oh yeah,
the
well that's Robert De Niro.
I feel like that's the flip side of I'm walking here, like from Midnight Cowboy. Here's a
Yeah.
rated X film from the
Yeah.
70s that Dustin Hoffman is saying, but it feels like such a New Yorker-ism that these two outsider characters, it's almost grown to represent a cultural New Yorker stereotype. I also think like that the iconic nature of some of the characters he's played. Like you could have that costume. Somebody could be on a Disney Channel show in a Halloween party, and you could see some kid wearing that costume, and
You
everybody
have
would,
nailed this.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
that's so
yeah.
funny.
What do you got, Richard?
All right, my second one is actually the first thing I thought of when this category or this topic was brought up, and I don't know why it was the first thing I thought of, but it's the song Robert De Niro's "Waiting"
Oh wow,
by Bananarama,
yeah,
and I don't know why, but every time I hear the name Robert De Niro, that's one of the first things I think of is the
oh
song.
wow,
Great song, Very underrated band. I think people kind of remember them from Venus or whatever, but had a lot of bangers in the '80s that they
Yeah.
co-wrote. I didn't know they were. I
Oh, they
didn't know
did.
before. Yeah, they were. They were the co-writers of
Cruel Summer. They.
most of their songs. Yeah,
Oh.
including Robert De Niro's "Waiting,"
Uh-huh.
which was originally called Al Pacino's "Waiting,"
Oh, wow.
but then they decided that Robert De Niro flowed off the tongue a little bit better, had just better
Oh,
rhythm
wow.
for the cadence of the song, which I
Wow.
just find interesting with the whole Pacino versus De Niro rivalry or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Quickie research for this said that in Bang the Drum Slowly, the role De Niro played was slated for Al Pacino, but um, Coppola had wanted him for Godfather. So somehow they pulled Pacino from that film, and De Niro slipped in, and then later on De Niro would come in for two. But when we're thinking, when these ladies are singing about this fantasy character, are they thinking of Vito Corleone from Godfather 2, do you think? Because he's talking Italian?
yeah. I mean, I think that there's probably an element of that. I
Mhm.
think that they were. I think the song, when you read the lyrics and really pay attention to the lyrics, it's kind of a darker song than you think of.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is a song about this person who's kind of withdrawn into this interior world and is engaging in this form of hero worship,
Mhm.
and kind of looking up at posters on the wall and kind of believing they're going to have a relationship with Robert De Niro, which
Uh,
which kind of is, I think, ironic considering the whole Taxi Driver sort of, or King of Comedy. He's known for playing these characters who kind of get drawn into these, maybe have unrealistic expectations of relationships with famous people.
yeah. Oh, that's
So,
interesting. Yeah.
so
Obsessive,
yeah, so it's
voyeuristic. Yeah.
it's an interesting choice for the person to name.
Yeah.
And apparently, after the song came out, he made it known through channels that he was interested in meeting the band.
Oh, wow.
Which the band decided to have multiple drinks before, to work up the courage before meeting him, because they had no idea if he was happy about the song, mad about the song, what exactly he was. And I tried to do some research on this and I couldn't figure out how the meeting actually went. But they're all alive and well, so I'm assuming that it. But I mean,
That
it's an interest. It's just an interesting choice for somebody to. I mean, in the '80s, to be like, this is who I'm. This is who this character is fantasizing about.
Mhm.
Because yes, De Niro was a leading man, but I don't see him as. Do you ever really think of him as like a sex symbol necessarily?
It'd be interesting to look at the people's top 10 of that era, because I think of
Yeah,
the same th I observe the same I have the same feeling about Brando when I look back at him, but if you saw any of the tabloids of the day, they were like, Brando was the number 1 sex symbol of
right.
that era, so I can
Yeah,
see him maybe falling in that same, category of this dreamy, vaguely foreign kind of character,
yeah.
and
There's something kind of. I would imagine if you're that character and for whatever reason, you're very shy and retiring and kind of living in a fantasy world of your own, you're looking for someone to fantasize about that's like kind of very projects strength.
Mhm.
And that's
Yeah,
definitely what Robert De Niro projects as a actor.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I would imagine that's another reason why you would name check Robert De Niro and not, like, I don't know, Wallace Shawn. Wallace Shawn's
Wally
waiting just
Cox,
doesn't.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it doesn't seem to just roll off the tongue quite as well. But
Jim J. Bullock is waiting.
exactly.
Mm.
That's super fun. It's also interesting because it does seem almost like a part of a Brits kind of fantasy about what New York was like, a gritty
Yeah, yeah,
thing.
especially in the
Yeah,
'80s. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So I think we're at our halftime, and we'll just do a quick direct to the website, Mount Rushmore Podcast.com, and YouTube, where all of our podcasts are posted. They're a little bit posted a little bit after They're posted by Richard on the podcast readers. So go check them out. And if you do have a suggestion for a topic, we're still taking them. We'd love to hear topics, maybe another actor you want us to talk about. So,
and rate and review us. Rate and review us wherever you're listening to us. Rate and review us. It helps out a lot.
Indeed. Okay, cool. So
even
then
if you
we
just
would be
go around
back.
the neighborhood, you know, and you walk around the neighborhood, and sometimes you see like those garage sale signs. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
you know, huge garage sale today. I love it. It's always huge. It's like, you know, can fill up half a drive. Huge garage sale. And you know, just underneath it, just take a piece of paper and just staple it to the thing, or you know, use you know, kind of tape or whatever, and just say Mount Rushmore podcast, and just draw like a thumbs up. It doesn't have to be a good thumbs up.
Yeah.
Or if you want to do like stars, you just write it, tape it around the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
People go to garage sales.
Absolutely.
They need recommendations.
Good viral marketing, Michael.
Yeah.
Good viral. That's very, very grassroots. I like
and
it.
They'll be in the right quality mindset for our podcast if they have a garage sale
Hey, a lot of people are walking around, and or what you can do is you take that garage sale sign, turn it over, right?
Yeah.
And write on the back, right?
Absolutely.
Mount Rushmore podcast 3, and then if you want to even do the half star, so you figure that out. I don't know how to draw a half star. I'm not there yet. I can only do the 5. I can't do the 1, 2.5.
The half star. Oh God, that's You need to do it. Bring white out so you can white out half of the star. Do a full star.
Spray paint template, like a little template thing. Just make it yourself at home. Work on it for a little bit. Take a few hours to work out a spray paint template. Bring it around the neighborhood. Take down garage. This is very complicated.
Getting.
Just go to the garage sale. They've got some broken stuff.
Just go.
They might have golf balls. They got them.
They might have an actual iPod and preloaded in it. Mount Rushmore podcast.
It's all there and all. That deal with Apple that we did, like U2. It was really cool.
I love that U2 had the I don't know which version, iPod 6 or whatever preloaded, and the new Las Vegas Sphere came preloaded with U2. Did you know?
Yeah.
The owners took ownership of possession of it, and U2 was just sitting there. Fuck.
There you go. You put Robert De Niro's face hugely blown up on the Las Vegas Sphere, but it's like solely connected on like his birthmark, that thing right there. just really heavily, intensely, and just spins all day.
Yeah. Michael, what's your third?
Yeah. My third choice is my dramatic role for Bob De Niro. I'm sorry, Bobby De Niro. Bob. I love when people are so familiar with him, like Martin Scorsese is, that he is not Robert. He's Bob. He's Bobby, and they just talk to him like that. And you know who they're talking about, because that sort of intense friendship only leads to being able to call him that. I don't think people can call him that unless.
Oh, you got to be Marty.
It has to go through a scene like in The Goodfellas. Or just Goodfellas, not the Goodfellas like the Facebook, but Goodfellas. Probably the movie of his that I've seen the most.
Yeah.
Because of how good, like, not just everything is in that movie, but how good he is. And I think it came back to that sense of he is menacing and vile, but so likable. Even in the scene when he's sending off what's his name's wife to go find the furs down the hallway past the pinball machines and everything. He's going to try to have her killed, but he's just so likable, and he's just kind of checking things off and whatever. But that movie, he's so good in everything about it. And I think that it's like his most, I don't know if it's necessarily his most iconic role, in the sense that Raging Bull or Taxi Driver, or even something like Cape Fear, where he plays like visually interesting characters, right? I think in this one, this is like when you're set in stone, when you're getting buried in the ground, whatever they say, the first line of whatever it is on your obituary. Like, I think Goodfellas is just kind of above everything else, even though he's won the Academy Award for other things. I think his his portrayal is like this father figure amongst these other two guys, this leader of this. He's not even like the mob boss, but he's just like this enforcer, but he's like the leader of like this little trio. It's just so good and so perfectly acted and perfectly done. There's nothing wrong. And I think sometimes it could be, director, could be whatever. He is just this amazing centerpiece of the film that it's amazing that he didn't win anything for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I think one thing that I kind of mourn a little bit when I hear, Scorsese talk about the Marvel Cinematic Universe and these superhero movies and how they're not cinema. Well, Scorsese and Coppola both took a B movie genre, the gangster film, and elevated it to drama, to an A movie. So they were able to take cartoon characters, the Italian, the mob, those people as depicted in those films are characterizations, and they're as pulpy as a comic book, and it just kind of obviously, Scorsese and De Niro have such a body of work that they are entitled to every opinion that they want. But I feel like just like Mark Ruffalo is not really the Hulk. De Niro is not really this seething powder keg of anger and violence that Jimmy the Gent Conway is, but we believe it so much that it is essentially marred the rest of his career when he wants to do a romantic comedy. Let's do a romantic comedy with Meryl Streep or Jane Fonda, or just a fun movie with Anne Hathaway. We think he's going to kill everybody in the movie,
right?
Just because he did it so profoundly. And the one thing I think that I love about Goodfellas that he's done in a couple other films is he ages so well in movies. It always seems like they do something to make him young, other than in The Irishman, which it was all crazy CG stuff. Like in Goodfellas, like in the beginning, they make him look younger, just like by putting stuff in his hair, Grecian formula, and then the end they make him look older just by putting some gray in his hair. But in the end, in the scene where you talk about where he's telling
I'll look it up.
He's Lorraine Bracco to
Karen.
Go dress,
He's telling Karen
to go grab a dress. He's wearing these glasses that make his eyeballs look bigger. So it's just so freaking awesome, just how well he ages and how cool he looks, just with a little bit of makeup and stuff like that. All right, Richard, what do you got?
All right, third choice is method acting bullshit.
Oh, that's funny.
I couldn't really pick one Robert De Niro method acting insanity story. So I have a compilation of them, and I think the one that is the most insane is in The Deer Hunter, where he insisted that a live round get put in the grenade or in the chamber during the Russian roulette scene.
Holy shit.
Now they apparently checked it to make sure that it wouldn't be in the chamber when the trigger was pulled.
Jeez.
But I don't care.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
It's called acting. Just pretend there's a real bullet in there and go from there.
Yeah.
You don't need to do this. Or even just stuff like in the movie New York, New York, which he did with Scorsese and Liza Minnelli. And boy, I imagine there's some stories to tell from the late 70s and those three being together. He plays a saxophone player.
Yeah.
And he actually learned how to play saxophone so he could get more into the character. You don't need to do that, man.
Yeah.
Put the thing on there and you just pretend.
Yeah.
And it's fine. And nobody gives a shit. I know we've talked about method acting before on the show. And De Niro is, I think, more so than Brando even, the number one example that gets held up of Well, when you do method acting, you really understand the concept of who the character is,
Yeah.
and you lived who they are, and you walked in their shoes. Look at De Niro and everything he's done.
Mhm.
He gained 60 pounds for, Raging Bull, and he lost 30 pounds for Taxi Driver, and he went to live in Sicily for 6 months to do Godfather 2. And he's like, you're the problem, De Niro. You're the reason why all these younger actors feel like they have to be pretentious a-holes in order to successfully, navigate a part. And so, yeah, as much as I think his performances stand alone and speak for themselves, the methods that you need to take to get there seem like they're kind of bullshit.
Mhm.
I
This is
love
the
the
hot
idea of,
conversation.
of remaking a movie in a different country. Like I love the idea of like Travis Bickle as a London cab driver,
Yeah.
and then all of this stuff is just
Excuse me, are
changed.
you talking to me?
Yeah, what's all this?
What's all this?
Just everything just terrible. It would be terrible but funny. Like you could have a mohawk, but it would be like one of like the 1970s like high punk mohawks from like the kind of high era of like English punk. That would be
Yeah.
that'd be great.
Hobie from
what would be the war
Spider-Man.
that he came? Yeah, what would be the
Yeah.
war that he came back from that he was disillusioned from? Not quite the Falcons. Something stupid.
And Michael, what is your fourth?
At the top of the episode, we kind of talked about like this guy. He takes so many different roles, or at least has in this later part of his career, and weird heist movie roles and just strange things. But I wanted to pick something that was just kind of really out of the ordinary for him, because he does a lot of serious things where he's a cop, or he's a gangster, or he's I don't know, some sort of figure of authority. So I chose one where he was a captain, and it's the movie Stardust, where he plays Captain Shakespeare, a captain of a air pirate ship, where he plays it super broad because he's also a cross-dressing pirate, and he teaches people. It is ridiculous. It is one of those things where it is as ridiculous as seeing Al Pacino in like Dick Tracy playing like a big boy Caprice, where it's just nuts. You're like, I don't know why he chose this. I don't know what the thing was within inside him that is tickled by this crazy depiction, other than it's just something that is so he's fine in it. He's goofy, he's silly, and you don't expect it. He's an air pirate captain, and like then all of a sudden it goes into this strange, he's wearing like a big pink dress and teaching people to dance and whatever. It's just like very strange. Very strange. But I think that's wild that he has this in him, that at some point he just has decided, I'm gonna make decisions for decision's sake, whether they're something like this, or the aforementioned Dirty Grandpa, or I could go down the list. Or like, I'm going to be in the Rocky and Bullwinkle movie. Like, what are?
Yeah, that's one. Yeah.
Why are you? Sometimes these actors just start doing things, and you're just like, boy, you've earned it. That you can you're going to do things now. And there's no reason also for him to be on the cover of that poster. The role is so minor. It is such a cameo sort of thing. He does not need to be there, that you just brought up. It's very strange. And imagine seeing that and then knowing like, okay, he's this intense. What is he? Is he a king? Is he some sort of other sort of kind of threatening figure? Oh, maybe he is a pirate. No. Well, yes, but also totally wrong with everything else.
Maybe he was just a big Neil Gaiman fan, Michael. I don't know.
I would appreciate. I mean, if that was true, God bless.
I find it compelling to know that De Niro has done a documentary telling the story of his father, who's I don't know if he was closeted homosexual, but did a story about his father, and to know that growing up with a father who was being true with his identity or untrue, or is challenged with having to keep it secret, but then also being part of the entertainment industry, but then being pigeonholed into these certain roles that don't tell a broad swath of the human experience. Like if he's always playing these tough guys and cops and things like that. He plays a lot of reticent characters who have to have their story tugged out of them in the third act of the movie. So I wonder if it is like, are we seeing more close to the real De Niro, the guy who's there, who chose play acting as a career? You know, he chose make 'em ups as a career. So when he plays these characters that have more of a fanciful outlook towards the world, I always wonder if that's closer to the real Bobby D, you know, than these tough guys he plays. You know, like think of like okay, he's a vegan or he's a vegetarian. He plays jazz piano. He does yoga. Who is it? Clint Eastwood. He's like, who would think that this was this guy's life? But he's just been pegged as this heavy for so long. All right. While our connection's still good, what's your fourth?
Before I run out of the internet that I prepaid for on my
oh, drat. Sorry.
So my last one's a story, and I mentioned that this is I mentioned the Bananarama song is the second thing I think of when I think of Robert De Niro. This is the first. This is relayed through a good friend of mine who heard this from someone who they knew who worked as an assistant with a major Hollywood studio producer who I will not name for reasons that will become obvious in a minute.
Solid intel here. Yeah.
So take this with a grain of salt. It's third person, so don't take this as gospel fact, but from a reliable source. The producer they worked for they were in the office one day, and this producer was having a relationship with Robert De Niro's girlfriend at the time.
Oh.
And Robert De Niro's car pulls up to the production offices and parks, and he sees him starting to walk towards his offices, and the producer just freaks out. Oh my God, Bobby De Niro's going to kill me. And literally runs into his office and hides, and forces this assistant to try and deal with Robert De Niro, who won't say exactly why he's there, but just says he would like to meet with said producer. I would like to think if there's anyone who I would less like to see coming at me if I was sleeping with their girlfriend than Robert De Niro. Maybe he's a sweetheart at heart, but I think that would not be something I would enjoy having a conversation with him about.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the story. That's it. It's a small story, but I just love this idea of this big shot Hollywood producer cowering because Bobby De Niro is literally going to kill him.
Oh my God.
Robert De Niro is literally waiting.
Yeah.
One of my favorite stories is it's one of those roles where it was more fanciful for him, where he's kind of playing out of character. Mad Dog and Glory, if you ever saw that.
Yeah, with Bill Murray.
Yeah, where he kind of plays a schlub and Bill Murray plays a crime boss or something like that. Yeah. And the costumer was saying, we would buy these expensive hand-tailored Italian suits and put them on Bill Murray, and in a second they would look like rumpled hobo clothing. And we would try to get the worst suit we can off the rack at Sears, and you put it on Robert De Niro, and he just looks fucking badass. Like he just looks like great. And I just think that's just something about just his identity too, his mythos. Okay, so this was a lot of fun, and I appreciate the different points of view that we took coming towards it. Kind of extrapolating out on the mythology of Robert De Niro. And that was, I think, what the inspiration for the topic was for me, for sure. But before our signal tanks or we get popped off, so I'm going to do the winners are Goodfellas, Chink, Midnight Run, Clank, Robert De Niro's, Robert De Niro.
Robert De Niro's waiting?
Let me see.
Who can tell? Who knows these days? You can't really see.
Robert De Niro's Weodding.
Yeah.
and method acting bullshit. Because I agree, that is as much part of his mythos as the indulgences. Oh, I have to have silk boxers. Why? Because Al Capone wore silk boxers.
Yes.
But they're not on camera. I'm going to have them, and they're going to be made by a tailor in Italy, because that's what Al Capone would have. But they're not on camera. Fuck you. I'm Robert De Niro.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. So, gents, it's been so nice to see you again. I'm so glad we got together again. And audience, it's so great to have you connect with us again. Vice versa, actually. And this has been the Mount Rushmore of Robert De Niro. I always am Jeff.
I'm Richard.